Hi everyone, I'm glad to have you join me again today. My name is Maryann. Today we're going to use this Churn Dash pattern, which is one that I did a couple of presentations earlier, and you can, take a look at the directions I use for that. But I also have the diagram here of how you would lay the fabrics out. And I also have measurements here if you want to make a different size. This is considered a 12-inch block. It's actually 12.5 inch, but when you combine it with the next block, it'll be a 12-inch block. I have directions here, or measurements really, for the 6-inch, the 9-inch, and the 12-inch. Today, I'm going to use this particular block, but I did it in the 6-inch size, and I'm going to make something called a mug rug with it. A mug rug is a little bit smaller than a placemat and a little bit bigger than a coaster. I have some verses here that if you're using this as a present for someone, you might want to put a little verse with it. Some people make up their own verses. You can find a lot of verses on the internet. I'm going to show you a couple of mug rugs. This is one that I made a while back. It's a Christmas one. And as you see, you can make it different sizes. This is bigger than the one I'm going to show you to make today. The size is up to you. You can make it as big or as small as you want. Now today, I told you we're going to use this Churn Dash, and I made this a 6-inch block, and then I added a side to it to make it the size I wanted. You can add one on both sides if you want. You could add it wider. You could make it with a 9-inch block. It's really up to you. All completely up to you. After you make your block, you're going to make this and put a side on it. After you make your block, you need a piece of batting, and that would be cut the exact size as that face of the mug rug. And then you need a piece of fabric for the backing. And you could actually use anything that you feel goes along with the front. I could have used a red backing on this. I'm using this. The backing, there's a couple different ways to do it. In this one, I cut everything, front, back, and batting the exact same size, and then I made my binding. And when you make this kind of binding, you have to put it on the bias. It takes a little more time. I'm going to show you a quick way to do it, and I wouldn't use this way for a big quilt, but I use it for little projects. I take my backing, and I cut it exactly an inch wider on all sides than the front part of the mug rug. So it looks something like this. And what I'm going to do with the mug rug is you can either outline your design, you could do diagonals, you could do what they call stitch in the ditch, where you're going right where the two fabrics meet. I'm going to do just a little bit of stitch in the ditch just to keep that together. You could actually put a line down here, and that'll hold this part together, and then you're going to put it on the backing. So let me get to the sewing machine here and do that little bit of stitching. And I think for this one, what I'm going to do is stitch in the ditch, which is right where the red joins the pattern. And I'm going to use a different foot instead of my 1/4-inch foot. This has a clear foot, so I can kind of see what I'm doing here for the stitch in the ditch. And because I'm using the ivory colored thread, I'm going to stitch just a little bit onto the lighter fabric so it doesn't show up on my red. Okay, that looks good. Just sewing a straight line all the way down here, right where the two fabrics meet. because I made this a small mug rug, that amount of stitching to hold it together is probably enough. If you wanted to do more, you could outline your design. I'm going to leave this like this. Depending on your batting, usually they advise you to use like stitching that's only like 4 inches apart or kind of a hand spread apart. But I think with the way this is going to come out, this will be enough. So then I'm going to take my backing, make sure all the folds are out, and I'm going to lay it so that the top part is exactly in the middle. And I do like to kind of measure that sometimes. Okay, so that's about 1 inch there. That's just about 1 inch. 1 inch, and 1 inch. So I have it fairly well centered. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my clips, and I'm going to take this, the 1 inch around it, and I'm going to fold it up to the rug and press it in place. I'm actually pressing it up to the batting because the batting sticks out a tiny little bit from my mug rug. I'm going to do this on all 4 sides. This is actually called a self-binding. Instead of using the bias binding that you would apply separately, this is called a self-binding. You just use your back fabric to do the binding. Now for the next step before you sew it, you can either use clips, which is what I like to use, or you could just pin it in place. I'm going to go ahead and use some of my clips. And I'll show you how to do the corners. That's what's a little bit tricky. Okay, so now we're going to take it and we're going to fold it up to the front. I'm going to do all the sides first before I show you how to do the corner. And this should just about meet the points on your design that's in the center. You want to show those points if you can. I'm going to overlap my point a tiny little bit there. So you're going to do this all the way around, and then we're going to turn those corners in. Okay, now we need to figure out what to do with the corners. So what I'm going to do is take this and put it on the side, like you're supposed to, and then I'm going to take this top part and flip it in to make like a triangle. And then I'm going to fold it again the way it should be folded and bring it down. And I don't know if you can see this, but you'll have a nice crisp little corner. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Actually, I do like to pin the corners rather than use the clip if I can. I'll be able to see the corner better that way too. Okay, and again, I'm gonna open this up a little bit. I'm gonna fold this side down into a triangle to meet the edge of the top. Fold this down in half again and flip it over. Got our second corner made. Down a little bit so I have some work area here. Flip that down again to make the triangle. Pull that out. Tuck it back in. If you haven't done this type of backing before, it might be a little bit tricky. You might want to practice a little bit. And as I said, I would tend to use it more on a small project than like a big quilt, although you could use it on anything that you're doing. Okay, one last corner. Pull it over. Turn it down so it meets the front. Turn it back. And try to get the edge to meet the other one here. Let me see. Let's do it again. Actually, I'm not happy with the way this corner is coming out. I'm going to try to do it a little bit better. Okay, so once you're satisfied with the way the corners look and everything looks okay, you're going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew right on the edge of the binding that you turned, almost like a 1/16 of an inch. You're just going to catch it all the way around and your mug rug will be done. So let me go ahead and start that. I usually start sewing in the middle of one of the sides rather than at the corner. It just seems to work out better that way. You might want to do a little back stitch when you first start so it doesn't come undone. So let me take it to the sewing machine and we'll go ahead and start that. If you find a marking on your foot or on your sewing machine, that'll help you figure out exactly where you want to stitch. That'll give you a nice even stitch all the way around. This is why I like the clear foot, so when I come to a corner, I can see that I cut the next section. Never sew over your pins, it'll break your needle. Still don't like this corner. See if I can fix it a little bit. I also use my needle down. If you have a needle up-down position on your sewing machine, I use the needle down so that when I'm turning, it stays in place. I don't lose my place. It won't shift on me. You may have noticed that I backstitched just a stitch or two on each corner. Okay, we just did the last corner, and we're coming down to where we're going to meet the starting stitching. I'm just going to give it a couple stitches back to secure it. And your mug rug is complete. It's already bound and everything. You don't have to do that extra step of making the binding. Now this tends to be a little bit smaller than what I usually make for a mug rug. I would probably, if I were doing it again, maybe use the 9-inch block instead of the 6-inch. But this makes a nice little mug rug. And as I said, it's just a little bit bigger than a coaster and a little bit smaller than a placemat. It's supposed to be, when you look at the sayings, you can tell it's supposed to be for your cup of coffee or tea or juice or whatever, and a little snack, either a veggie or a fruit or a breakfast bun, whatever you're going to use it for. Makes a great gift, a housewarming gift, or a gift for around the holidays. People love them. Thank you, and see you again next week.